It's been shown time and time again that channels who switch their hosts after years of building rapport with their audiences always seem to end up falling into complete irrelevancy. Fred equals Tree, Smosh, all channels that at one time sat at the absolute peak of YouTube, but quickly fell apart after the absence of their iconic hosts. Matt, Steph, and the rest of the Game Theory team are certainly aware of this, and they attempted to negate the usual knee-jerk reactions of slighted fans by slowly introducing the new hosts over time, cleverly before Matt announced his imminent retirement. This certainly succeeded in facilitating a smooth transition without any major drama, but taking a look at the analytics, it's a different story. If we look at the past 6 videos across the 4 theorist channels, excluding videos that have been up for less than 1 week, and get an average view count, then compare it to the average of 6 videos uploaded exactly 1 year ago before Matt announced his retirement, it's pretty concerning. Game Theory, 3.3 to 1 million views. Style Theory, an average of 3.1 million all the way down to 500k, and the other channels aren't doing any better. Overall, it's a reduction from an average of 11.5 million to 3.1 million views, an almost 4-time reduction in view count only 3 months after MatPat's retirement. I'm a big fan of all these channels, but the numbers don't lie, and I fear they illustrate the beginning of the downfall of yet another iconic channel after being acquired by a multi-million-dollar conglomerate and having its main host step down. So let's analyze why this is happening, how they can potentially recover, or if that's even possible at this point. But why does MatPat leaving have such a profound impact on these channels? Well, Matt's been on YouTube for a long time, longer than many Game Theory viewers have even been alive, and we've witnessed the public perception of Game Theory and Matt himself change dramatically over the years. I think Game Theory is a staple to a lot of our childhoods, and the basic pitch of it being a way to teach intimidating concepts like physics and psychology through the lens of video games was a really admirable and positive approach.
Game Theory, gaming's tangential learning experience.
Matt often fit the role of a teacher more than a gamer, and it helped Game Theory stand out within the typically cynical and edgy gaming YouTube space of the time. But over time, how people saw MatPat started to shift, especially in the late 2010 edgy era of YouTube. I felt like the general public perception of Matt shifted to seeing him as a kind of cringy, fake corporate kind of guy, and the more far-reaching theories started to get major backlash online.
Final step and said that Sans happened to be negative from Earthbound.
I am gonna fucking break something if I hear any more of this fucking trash!
I suspect this is largely from his young fanbase growing up into jaded teenagers who saw Game Theory as childish, unlike the cool, grown-up channels they like now, like Leafy is Here. But over time this started to cool down, and I think a big part of that was the Game Theory Live channel. Here Matt began to post raw live streams that allowed viewers to get a sense for Matt's actual personality, and he came off as a very genuine and likable person, with a passion for teaching and spreading positivity. He's a rare creator that is actually wholesome, like he's never even seen porn.
I've actually never looked at porn ever, like outside of
He has a very earnest and somewhat naive charm that did a lot in winning back the now nostalgic old Game Theory fans. By the time we reach modern day, the general YouTube community had grown a deep connection and appreciation for Matt. One of his most appealing qualities was his genuine enthusiasm for the topics he covered. When he discussed stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's, although some accused him of milking the franchise, you could tell he had a genuine obsessive fixation with it, which was very enduring and relatable. Personally, his meta YouTube videos always drew me to his channel, and it's part of what inspired what I make. I think his personality brought a lot of adults to Game Theory, despite being outside its target demographic. Although at the end of the day, Game Theory is a business, and there's a huge team behind it, and as the years went on it started to become more and more common for Matt to cover franchises he clearly didn't have much familiarity with for the sake of covering a trending topic for SEO reasons. And it'd sometimes come off a little forced and cynical, to be honest.
Where Hugh meets the creepy-looking Igor and his assistant Elizabeth.
Okay, so this has been memed to death, the whole he calls Margaret Elizabeth thing. I don't know why you didn't, why wouldn't you proofread it and think that's not Elizabeth?
It always bugged me with film theory especially. For the most part though, film theory videos at least had some overlap with the general interests of Matt and the Game Theory audience. But when Food Theory launched in 2020, it was clearly a lot more niche, and Style Theory even more so. Despite this clear discrepancy of audience interest, these channels still did really well, and a big reason for that was seeing Matt, who was just as clueless about cooking and fashion as the average gamer, learn about it along with the audience. Matt's personality was really the star of the show on these channels. They featured a lot of in-person segments of Matt cooking and conducting experiments on camera. His journey of learning about food and fashion became a narrative in of itself, making the content even more engaging and facilitating a greater connection between Matt and the fans. Over time, Matt managed to steadily grow Game Theory and the three other channels to a cumulative 43 million subscribers, expanding the theorist team to over a dozen people and reaching the absolute peak of YouTube. But that required insane dedication and consistency, and eventually, late last year, Matt announced he would be stepping back from the role of host of all 4 theorist channels. There was a huge outpouring of support all over the internet after this, with people sharing their appreciation for the influence Game Theory had over the years and wishing Matt well as he took a more behind the scenes role so he could focus on family and other projects. Then after his final 10 theories, the new hosts were welcomed with nothing but positivity. As for the new hosts, they're all better fits in theory: a film buff, a guy who can cook, and a girl that's more knowledgeable in the fashion space. Matt only ever really fit the gamer archetype, but looking back to the slipping view counts we saw earlier, the channels simply aren't performing nearly as well without Matt at the helm. So why is this? Are the new hosts that much worse than Matt? No, honestly, I think they're perfectly fine. Have the videos decreased in quality? Well, no, in fact they're literally the exact same. That's the biggest point. I think looking at this you have to realize that, like I referred to earlier, Game Theory isn't just Matt. There was a huge team working together to make each video. It's a heavily collaborative process, and most of the time, Matt isn't even the one writing the words he speaks. He's more overseeing the project like a director, a role he's still filling today. Really, the only thing that's changed is the voice reading the scripts. And those new voices certainly aren't bad, but it's clear they're no replacement for Matt. Really, no one could be. At least not right away. He really is core to the channel's identity. Even earlier in its life, Game Theory did have a history of guest hosts every once in a while, and audiences liked them overall, but none of their videos ever performed nearly as well or were as memorable as some of the best hosted by Matt. People stuck around because they knew Mattpat would be back next week, but if Game Theory just became the Gaijin Goombas show, do you think Game Theory would have grown to the size it did? I don't think so. These fill-in hosts were really just a little bonus to most fans, but definitely not the reason they kept coming back. When it comes to Game Theory and really every big channel, the host matters just as much as the content. Mattpat's audience had a strong attachment to him, built over years and years. Game Theory has been part of our lives since we were kids, and this nostalgic attachment is something the new hosts, despite their expertise, simply can't replicate. And trying to be another Mattpat is just off-putting. Like these weird images of them recreating his iconic thinking pose like skinwalkers or something. No, the goal shouldn't be to replace Mattpat, but to bring their own style to the channels for the next generation. It'll take time, but I believe that the new hosts all have the charisma and natural charm to build their own unique connection with the current and future Game Theory audience. They're all likable and more than competent hosts, handpicked by Matt and Team Theorist. The challenge for the new hosts isn't just about maintaining quality and being knowledgeable in their respective fields, which they're certainly excelling at, but also about building their own unique connection with the audience, the same way Mattpat did over years, not by emulating him, but by showcasing their own unique personalities. I think people are already connecting with Santi from Food Theory, for example. He definitely has his own unique voice from that, which is on full display with his humor and narration style. That adds a lot of life to the channel. And although Food Theory is in the lower half of performing channels, I do believe over time he can build his own audience, and Food Theory will definitely grow back to, and even beyond, its previous standing. I think occasionally leaning into that more personality-driven content will work well for all the channels in the long run, rather than just trying to talk like and be MatPat 2.0. Matt is a truly legendary YouTube personality, and I don't think he can ever be truly replaced. Right now, Game Theory is in a precarious position, and as for if it can survive or not without him, only time will tell, but I truly hope it can rebound, and the new host can carry on the legacy of Game Theory as an important part of the childhoods for a new generation on YouTube, just as it was for so many of us.